Prince Caspian, The Chronicles of Narnia 2 by C.S. Lewis. The Hidden Truths. In the dimly lit chamber, high atop the great tower that pierced the heavens like a stone sentinel, Prince Caspian sat across from his tutor, Dr. Cornelius. The night was still, save for the occasional rustle of parchment, as the doctor turned the pages of an ancient tome. The chamber, adorned with tapestries depicting the legends of old Narnia, was filled with the scent of musty books and the flickering shadows cast by a lone candle. "Tell me again, Doctor," Caspian urged, his eyes wide with a mix of wonder and disbelief. "Are you truly saying that Narnia was once ruled by talking beasts and walking trees?" Dr. Cornelius peered over his spectacles, a smile tugging at the corners of his mouth. "Indeed, my prince. And not just any rulers, but kings and queens from the world of men, chosen by Aslan himself." Caspian leaned forward, the stories igniting a fire within him. "And my family? The Telmarines? We are not the first?" "No, Caspian. Before Miraz. Before your father, there was the golden age of Narnia," the doctor explained, his voice a hushed whisper as if the very walls held spy. It was a time of peace and prosperity, where Aslan's presence was felt in every sunrise and every blooming flower. The prince's heart raced. "But why has no one spoken of this? Why did you wait so long to tell me?" Dr. Cornelius closed the book and took a deep breath. "Because, my dear boy, knowledge is power, and power is dangerous in the wrong hands. Your uncle, King Miraz, fears the truth of old Narnia. He fears Aslan." Caspian's mind reeled with the implications. "So, I am the true king of Narnia," Cornelius finished for him. "Caspian the 10th, son of Caspian the 9th. It is your birthright to reclaim the throne and restore Narnia to its former glory." The room fell silent as the weight of his destiny settled upon Caspian's shoulders. He stood walking to the window, gazing out at the stars that seemed to twinkle with ancient secrets. "Then I will do it," Caspian declared, turning back to face his tutor. "I will find these old Narnians. I will learn from them, and together we will bring down Miraz and see justice done." Dr. Cornelius nodded, pride evident in his eyes. "It will be dangerous, my prince, but I believe in you, and I believe in Aslan. When the time comes, use this." He handed Caspian a small, intricately carved horn, its surface etched with symbols of old, a relic of a time when magic was as common as the air they breathed. It belonged to Queen Susan. When blown, it will call for aid. Caspian accepted the horn, feeling its ancient power thrum through his veins. "I will not fail, Doctor. I will not fail Narnia." With that, the seeds of rebellion were sown, and the hidden truths of Narnia began to stir once more, like embers waiting to ignite into a blaze of freedom and magic. As the echoes of their fateful conversation faded into the night, the journey toward a new dawn for Narnia was set into motion. The call to arms. "Are you sure this will work, Dr. Cornelius?" Caspian's voice was barely audible against the stillness of the night. "It must," the old tutor responded, his gaze a blend of fear and hope. "The horn's call will summon aid from across time. Perhaps even the ancient monarchs will heed it." With a nod, Caspian filled his lungs and sounded the horn, its eerie melody slicing through the quiet, weaving over land and water, and piercing the fabric of Eris. The Pevensie children felt an inexplicable tug at their hearts. "Did you feel that?" Susan whispered, her fingers brushing her chest where the horn once rested. "It's Narnia," Lucy said, her eyes shining with excitement. "We're being summoned." A surge of magic swept them up, and as it faded, they stood in Narnia's embrace amidst the dense foliage and the chorus of hidden creatures. Where are we? Edmund inquired, scanning their surroundings. We've returned, Peter stated, resolve in his voice. And for a purpose, we must discover it. United, the Pevensies ventured into the woods, heeding the call to arms. As they dipped their arms into the stream, the cool water enveloped them up to the elbows. They then followed the stream up into the wood, the water's gentle babble guiding them. The stream, no wider than a small road and shallow enough to wade through, meandered through the uneven terrain, flanked by mossy banks and overhanging branches. They continued their journey, following the stream deeper into the wood, the water's clarity, a promise of purity as it flowed from its source in the heart of the forest. The surrounding woods were dense, the canopy above a patchwork of green, with occasional clearings where the sky peeked through. No other landmarks were in sight, yet the stream served as their compass, leading them away from the beach's salty tang toward the forest's untouched heart. It was their lifeline in the vast woodland, the sole clear path through the underbrush, and perhaps their guide to uncovering the mysteries that awaited them in Narnia. Gathering forces. Prince Caspian addressed the assembly of Narnia's magical creatures, declaring his intent not for a throne, but for the freedom that Narnia once knew. The Pevensey children were summoned back to aid in this cause as the war against King Miraz and the Telmarine barbarians threatened the very essence of Narnia. The stars themselves had foretold their return, aligning with ancient prophecies of change. Caspian unveiled his strategy, revealing alliances with the centaurs, led by the wise Glintstorm and the valiant Reepicheep, whose bravery and tactical acumen were unmatched, even among the larger beasts. Reepicheep, though small, was a master of covert operations and would lead a special task force to infiltrate the enemy's ranks. As the meeting concluded, a sense of unity and determination filled the air. The forces of old Narnia, with the Pevensey children and Aslan's guidance, were ready to reclaim their homeland. The stage was set for a battle that would decide the fate of Narnia, and as night fell, the creatures of the great woods felt the stirrings of a new chapter, one of hope and impending triumph. Doubts and loyalties. In the dim light of the early dawn, the Pevensey siblings and Trumpkin gathered in the war room of Aslan's house. Maps were strewn across the table, and the air was thick with the weight of impending decisions. Are we truly ready for this? Lucy's voice was small but carried the weight of their shared uncertainty. Peter looked at his siblings, his expression grim. We faced worse, remember? We can do this. Edmund nodded, clenching his fist. We're not the same children who stumbled into Narnia through a wardrobe. We've fought battles, we've led armies. But we're still so young, Susan interjected, her brow furrowed. And the creatures here, will they follow us again? Trumpkin grunted, his arms crossed. They'll follow because they believe in Narnia, and because they believe in you. A silence fell upon the group, each lost in their thoughts until Caspian entered, his face etched with the night's worries. We have word from the scouts, Caspian announced. Miraz's forces are on the move. We must act swiftly. Peter stood up, determination in his eyes. Then let's not keep them waiting. We'll show Miraz that Narnia won't bow to tyrants. As they discussed strategies, a messenger burst in, breathless. Aslan has been seen in the woods to the east. The room erupted in a mix of gasps and cheers. Aslan's presence was the sign they needed, a beacon of hope in the darkest hour. With renewed vigor, they set out to rally their forces. The Pevensies, alongside Caspian and Trumpkin, moved through the ranks, their presence bolstering the spirits of the Narnian creatures. Lucy approached Caspian, her eyes reflecting the fire of determination. We stand with you, Caspian. Together, we'll turn the tide. Caspian nodded, his hand resting on the hilt of his sword. Your courage gives us strength. With Aslan's guidance, we'll reclaim Narnia's freedom. Edmund stepped forward, his voice steady. Strategy and strength will win this battle, but it's our hearts that will win the war. Susan, with a reassuring smile, added, and our unity will be the shield that protects us all. The dissenters were few, and their voices faded into the background as the true heart of Narnia shone through. In the end, it was their faith in Aslan and in each other that held them together. They were a tapestry of creatures, woven together by a common thread of hope and courage. As they marched towards the battlefield, the sun broke through the clouds, casting a golden light upon them. It was as if Aslan himself was walking beside them, his warmth a tangible promise of their not being alone. And so, with doubts cast aside and loyalties affirmed, they went forth to face their destiny, united under the banner of a Narnia reborn. The challenge. The morning sun rose over the encampment, casting a golden light on the faces of the anxious Narnians gathered there. Peter, with a determined look in his eyes, stood before them, holding a parchment that bore the weight of their future. Today, he began, his voice steady and clear. We take a stand not just for Caspian, but for all of Narnia. This challenge to King Miraz is our chance to end this conflict without further loss. Caspian stepped forward, placing a hand on Peter's shoulder. You carry our hopes with you, High King, he said, gratitude evident in his tone. Peter nodded, then turned to Edmund. Keep them ready. If this goes awry, we fight. Edmund clasped his brother's arm, a silent promise of readiness. As Peter approached the Telmarine camp, the clanking of armor and murmur of soldiers filled the air. He was met by Lord Glozell and Lord Caspian, who looked at the parchment with disdain. You challenge our king to a duel? Glozell sneered. A desperate ploy. It is a chance for peace, Peter replied, unfazed. Will he accept? Or does he fear to face me alone? The lords exchanged a glance, the seed of doubt planted. Within the hour, King Miraz, clad in his imposing armor, stood before Peter. The ground between them was to be the stage of a duel that could change history. You think to best me, boy? Miraz's voice boomed across the field. I fight for what is just, Peter retorted, drawing his sword. For Caspian, for Narnia. The clash of steel rang out as the two kings crossed swords. Each strike from Miraz was met with a swift parry from Peter. The onlookers held their breath, knowing the gravity of each movement. In the midst of their battle, a roar echoed from the woods. Aslan had arrived, his presence bolstering the Narnians' spirits. With renewed vigor, Peter pressed on, and with a final decisive thrust, he disarmed Miraz. The usurper king kneeled defeated, and the Narnians erupted in cheers. Caspian was hoisted onto the shoulders of his people, their chants of victory filling the air. As Peter and Aslan locked eyes, a silent understanding passed between them. This was not just a victory in battle, but a triumph for the true heart of Narnia. The chapter closes with the Pevensies and the Narnians celebrating their hard-won peace, knowing that while challenges lay ahead, they had reclaimed the kingdom with honor and bravery. The door to a new era in Narnia had been opened, and together they would walk through it. The betrayal within. In the dimly lit tent of Aslan's house, the air was thick with tension. King Miraz paced furiously, his heavy boots thudding against the ground while his counselors watched in uneasy silence. The Narnian allies, a motley crew of creatures great and small, huddled together, their whispers barely audible over the king's ranting. Enough of this cowardice, Miraz bellowed, turning sharply to face his counselors. I will not be made a fool by these children and their fairy tales. In a shadowed corner, a debate arose among the Narnians. Caspian, the true heir to the throne, stepped forward, his brow furrowed. We must find a way to unite and fight, not fall into despair, he urged. The tent erupted into chaos as arguments broke out. Peter, the eldest Pevensie, raised his voice above the din. We must hold fast to hope, not give in to darkness. Trumpkin, the loyal dwarf, nodded in agreement. True power lies in our unity and courage, not in fear or false promises. As the debate raged, a sudden commanding roar silenced them all. Aslan himself stood at the entrance of the tent, his presence like a beacon in the night. "Narnians," he began, his voice resonant with authority, "the time for fear is past. It is now that you must trust in the power of good." The creatures bowed their heads, a sense of unity slowly knitting them back together. Caspian stepped forward, his decision clear. "We stand with you, Aslan. Together, we will fight for what is right." With Aslan's arrival, the betrayal within was quelled. The allies, once divided, now stood together, their resolve strengthened by the lion's wisdom. They rallied under the banner of hope, with Aslan leading them towards a dawn of peace and prosperity. The Narnians' commitment to the path of good was renewed, setting a clear direction for the upcoming challenges. Aslan's guidance had united them, and together they faced the future with unwavering courage and faith. A renewed Narnia. The sun rose over a reborn Narnia, its golden light embracing the land. Cair was alive with preparations for King Caspian's coronation. The great hall, draped in banners of deep red and shimmering gold, resounded with the harmonious melodies of lutes and flutes. Creatures of every kind gathered, their faces alight with joy. Caspian stood before them, a symbol of their collective hope. Aslan's voice filled the space. "Caspian, son of Caspian, step forward." The young king moved with purpose, his resolve clear. "You have shown your worthiness for the throne. Will you rule with justice and mercy?" Aslan asked. "I will," Caspian affirmed. The crowd's cheer was a vibrant tapestry of sound celebrating the moment. Peter presented Susan's magic horn to Caspian. "We leave Narnia in your hands," he said with a respectful nod. Caspian accepted the horn, its surface cool and weighty. "Your trust honors me," he replied. Lucy embraced him, her farewell a silent promise of remembrance. Edmund's grin was a flash of camaraderie. "Guard our Narnia well," he said. "I shall," Caspian vowed. The Pevensies' departure was a solemn procession, their steps through the door marking an end and a beginning. Aslan watched, his eyes holding the wisdom of ages. "Caspian, remember, greatness comes not from lineage, but from the heart." Caspian faced his people, determination in his stance. Today marks a new chapter. Together we will forge a Narnia that stands as a testament to hope and unity. The celebration that followed was a dance of life, a chorus of magic, and a declaration of the enduring spirit of Narnia. Farewell to Narnia. The air was filled with the scent of apple blossoms as the Pevensies prepared to leave, their hearts heavy. Lucy held the magic horn, her fingers caressing the carvings before giving it to King Caspian. "Keep it safe," she whispered, "and remember us." King Caspian nodded, his eyes moist. "Forget? Impossible. You've taught us the essence of bravery." Peter, no longer just a leader but a brother, said, "Our time is past, Caspian. Now you carve history." Edmund, practical as ever, patted his pockets. "I'll miss Narnia," he murmured. "Narnia will miss you too," Trumpkin replied, his voice thick with emotion. Susan spoke softly. Aslan said we're too old to return, her eyes on the lion who had been their guide. Aslan's mane caught the sunlight as he said, "You've brought peace and hope to Narnia, a priceless gift." Lucy approached Aslan. "Will we see you again?" she asked softly. "In your world I am known by another name. Discover me there," Aslan answered, comforting yet enigmatic. The siblings, now in their school attire, felt out of place after their Narnian adventures. Riapachip saluted them. To the noblest humans, keep your hearts brave, your spirits adventurous. They approached the door, a portal wavering like a mirage. Hand in hand they stepped through, leaving Narnia for the sound of a train whistle and the bustle of an English station. They were home, but a part of them would forever dwell in Narnia, where trees danced and animals spoke.